I woke up to a miracle today. Triggers stay as I find my way. No judgment to lead astray. In this peaceful state I'll stay.
Welcome back. It's always good to set aside this time, to step away from the everyday noise and sit together with these lessons.
It truly is. This appointment feels essential each day. Today, our focus shifts to Lesson 299, Eternal Holiness Abides in Me. We're getting near the end of the year's study, and you can feel a shift in these later lessons. They seem less like exercises, less like training.
Yeah, and more like recognizing something that was always the case.
That's it, a kind of radical recognition.
So our exploration today centers on that recognition. We want to look into what holiness signifies here, and we need to understand why it's described as eternal, untouchable.
And how stillness, that simple shift in attention, is actually the whole practice being asked of us. And as always, we invite you, our listeners, to share what comes up for you.
Yes, please do. If Lesson 299, or any lesson, sparks something, let us know.
Okay, let's begin with a reading of Lesson 299 itself. We'll read it verbatim.
Lesson 299, Eternal Holiness Abides in Me. My holiness is far beyond my own ability to understand or know. Yet God, my Father, who created it, acknowledges my holiness as His. Our will together understands it, and our will together knows that it is so.
Father, my holiness is not of me. It is not mine to be destroyed by sin. It is not mine to suffer from attack. Illusions can obscure it, but cannot put out its radiance nor dim its light.
It stands forever perfect and untouched. In it are all things healed, for they remain as you created them. And I can know my holiness, for holiness itself created me, and I can know my source because it is your will that you be known.
Eternal holiness abides in me. It sounds so simple, that statement, almost deceptively simple.
It does. It suggests a state of being that's absolute, unchanging.
But then you hold it against, the backdrop of daily life, those days where you feel the opposite of holy, inadequate maybe, or like you're failing.
And the sentence feels like a direct clash, a kind of metaphysical challenge to the whole idea of who we think we are.
It absolutely challenges the ego's entire framework. The ego operates on the idea that we're fundamentally lacking, always needing to improve or earn something.
Right. Constantly striving.
And then this lesson comes along and says, holiness abides in you. It's already there, untouched, which makes all that striving seem, pointless.
But then there's that line, my holiness is far beyond my own ability to understand or know. That can trip people up. If I can't understand it, the me I think I am, how am I supposed to even believe it's there? How do I access it?
That's such a crucial point. It highlights the difference between the small self, the ego self that analyzes and fears.
The one we usually identify with.
Exactly. And the true self, the Christ self. The ego can't know holiness because holiness undoes the ego. It exists outside the ego system of separation, judgment, and fear.
So access isn't about figuring it out intellectually.
No, it's about a willingness to let go of that very intellectual effort. It's an invitation to withdraw our belief in the flawed self we constructed.
And to accept that our reality is defined by our source, not by our mistakes or our temporary feelings.
Which brings up a question many people have. If this holiness is eternal, always here, untouched, why the 365-day practice? Why a whole year of lessons if nothing was ever truly lost?
Why doesn't simply hearing eternal holiness abides in me fix everything instantly?
Because the issue isn't that holiness is absent. The issue is our deep-seated belief that it is absent, or fragile, or conditional.
We've built this elaborate counter system, the ego, designed specifically to hide this truth from ourselves.
We have. So the 365 lessons aren't about building holiness. They're exercises in undoing the habit of looking away, the habit of believing the ego's story.
It's like cleaning a lens, a very dusty one.
That's a good way to put it. The perfect image, the holiness, is always there behind the dust. The practice is needed to clear away those layers of guilt, fear, self-attack that we habitually keep piling on.
Which leads us straight to that other key line. My holiness is not of me. It is not mine to be destroyed by sin. This is such a radical departure from conventional thinking about sin.
A complete departure. Here, sin isn't some stain on the soul caused by wrongdoing. Sin is understood simply as a mistake in thinking, an error. Specifically, the belief that we are separate from our source.
So if sin is just a mistaken perception, it has no actual power over reality.
Not at all. If our source is perfect wholeness, and we were created as an extension of that source, how could any action we take in the illusion change our fundamental nature? It's impossible.
Sin only makes sense within the ego's framework. That's incredibly freeing. It takes away the sting of guilt. It means there's literally nothing we could do, no mistake we could make that could diminish the light within us.
It remains untouched.
And looking at the first paragraph again, it shifts from the individual perspective. It says, our will together understands it, and our will together knows that it is so. This points toward the collective nature of this understanding, doesn't it? It's not about my personal struggle to get holy.
No, it's about joining. It's the individual mind, the one that believes it's separate, joining with the universal mind, the will of God, which is that unified consciousness, the Christ mind, the Holy Spirit's perspective, you could say. Only this collective awareness, this recognition that we are fundamentally one. Only that can truly grasp a state like eternal holiness.
Because holiness is wholeness.
And wholeness can only be understood from a place of unity, not separation. So when we allow our perception to align with the Holy Spirit's vision,
we join that, our will.
And in that joining, we naturally know our holiness. It's not learned, it's remembered.
The implication is huge. We aren't separate islands trying to achieve individual enlightenment.
Our holiness is recognized only when we recognize the unity that is its nature. If I try to find my holiness for myself alone,
the belief in separation is still running the show, and the holiness stays hidden.
The recognition has to be shared, which is why these later lessons feel less like specific tasks and more like descriptions of a state of being.
We're being guided to recognize the fixed nature of who we are. It stands forever perfect and untouched.
It's like locating the North Star on a stormy night. The star itself doesn't move, no matter how wild the clouds are beneath it.
Our moods, anxieties, frustrations, those are the clouds. But the star of our holiness is constant. Yet we spend so much time believing the clouds are the reality. Let's talk about that friction. Because for many people, the idea of inherent perfection feels impossible, especially when faced with tangible consequences of mistakes.
Financial problems, maybe. Broken relationships, or just those moments where you lose your temper.
Yes, if I snap at someone I care about, that experience feels intensely real. The anger, the regret. Where is the untouched holiness in that moment of obvious ego takeover?
That's where the application gets very practical. The snap, the harsh words, the loss. These are all events in the world of form. They are temporary effects. The holiness is the content, the foundation beneath the changing forms. The ego's main strategy is to convince us that the form, the behavior, the outburst, has somehow damaged or altered the content, our true nature.
But the truth is, that moment of snapping was just a moment of forgetting.
Exactly, a moment of forgetting the truth. The holiness didn't vanish when the anger flared up. It was simply obscured. It waited patiently, completely unaffected.
I think many of us, myself included sometimes, can confuse this practice with trying to suppress emotions. We think practicing holiness means we shouldn't feel angry or frustrated.
That's a common misconception.
But what you're describing isn't about achieving perfect serenity. It's about recognizing a deeper steadiness, an acceptance that the feeling is temporary, but the I experiencing the feeling remains whole.
That's it. It's crucial to clarify. Holiness is not a particular feeling, and it's definitely not the absence of challenging feelings.
The aim isn't to force ourselves into some kind of blissful state or to pretend we don't have ego reactions.
Not at all. The aim is to cultivate an internal distinction, to be able to say, okay, I'm experiencing anxiety about this deadline, or I am feeling irritation towards this person.
But I'm not defined by this anxiety or irritation.
Yes. The holiness provides the unchanging reference point, the anchor. It allows us to witness the ego storms without getting completely swept away by them, without identifying as them.
Let's dive into those specific daily scenarios. Think about a high-pressure work situation, a deadline looming, maybe conflict with a coworker. The atmosphere is tense.
The ego immediately reads that external stress as a threat. It triggers reactivity, fight, flight, freeze.
And the ego loves that external pressure, doesn't it? It offers a seemingly valid reason to abandon inner peace.
It does. So in those moments, the practice is to remember the stress isn't inherent in the situation itself. The stress is the interpretation the ego applies to it.
It's the belief that my worth, or even my survival, hangs entirely on the outcome of this temporary event.
Right. So when that pressure builds, the memory of our inherent holiness acts as a direct counter-message. A thought like, the eternal part of me is untouched, even if this project goes sideways.
That requires a conscious choice. A choice to value the unseen, abiding truth more than the immediate, loud demands of the external situation.
It's a radical shift in allegiance.
And if I choose to remember my holiness, even for a second, my reaction has to change. Towards the coworker, towards the deadline, instead of adding fuel to the fire.
You notice the discomfort. You might take a breath. You pause. The pause is the space where the choice is made. Am I aligning with the ego's fear right now? Or am I opening to another possibility, the Holy Spirit's perspective?
Choosing the pause is like declaring, I refuse to let this temporary drama define my eternal reality.
It withdraws the personal stake, the belief that I am being attacked or that I'm failing. When that investment drops away, the light of holiness, which was always there, can start to shine through the situation.
But what about the inner critic, that voice that inevitably pipes up afterward? Okay, you pause, but then you still sounded annoyed. You didn't handle it perfectly. You failed again.
The lesson emphasizes that holiness isn't about flawless performance. It's about the willingness to remember the truth.
The effort isn't in achieving perfection.
No. The achievement, if you want to call it that, lies in recognizing a mistake for what it is, a temporary error in thinking, not a permanent indictment of your being.
So accepting that my worth isn't tied to how well I handle that interaction, that stops the guilt cycle.
It does, because guilt is the ego's primary tool for obscuring holiness. If you refuse to feel guilty about imperfection, the critic loses its power.
And that acceptance, that lack of self-condemnation, is what allows for kindness towards ourselves first, maybe.
And then naturally extending it outwards. If I accept that my holiness is untouched by my mistakes, I can start to see that the same must be true for the irritating colleague or the aggressive driver.
Or even people whose actions seem destructive on a larger scale.
This leads directly to the concept of recognizing innocence, which can be one of the most challenging ideas.
It's not denying the behavior we see.
No, it's not pretending harmful actions didn't happen. It's choosing to look past the behavior to the underlying reality. It's saying, yes, that action clearly came from fear or illusion, but the true identity of the person beneath that action, the Son of God, remains eternally perfect and untouched.
Their holiness didn't vanish, even if they completely lost sight of it in that moment of fear.
It never wavered. This completely reframes forgiveness.
It's not about excusing bad behavior. It's not saying, oh, it's okay that you hurt me.
Worldly forgiveness often implies seeing the sin and choosing to overlook it, maybe out of pity or superiority.
But this kind of forgiveness is different.
It's about vision correction. It's saying, I choose to see the light in you, and I refuse to make the darkness, the illusion, the mistake real. It uncovers the real story.
Which is?
That holiness was never lost by anyone. It was only forgotten, obscured by the belief in separation. Forgiveness becomes the process of systematically dismantling that belief system, affirming the untouched reality.
And when we choose that perspective, looking past the form to the shared content, the holiness of the world starts to feel different, less divided.
Because if my brother or sister is eternally whole, then I must be too. This shed light isn't optional, it's fundamental.
Holiness doesn't play favorites. It can't be present in one person and absent in another. If it's eternal, it has to be universal.
And recognizing that brings such relief. The burden of judging, ranking people based on their behavior or apparent spiritual progress, it just dissolves.
Because in truth, everyone is already where they were created to be. Perfect, whole, untouched.
And those moments where the inner climate does shift, when the tension eases unexpectedly, or the urge to react disappears, those are the practical demonstrations.
Proof that the truth of our holiness was always there, waiting.
It just needed our attention to be withdrawn from the illusions for a moment. And that willingness to withdraw attention, that willingness to remember, is the entire practice.
Let's take some time to clarify some of the specific language here. We've had listeners ask what the precise meaning of key terms within this framework. Definitions are important.
Yes, common words are often given very specific meanings. Understanding those nuances is helpful.
Okay, first question. What does abide signify here? Does it just mean holiness is present, or is it stronger than that?
Abide points directly to permanence, unchanging reality. In the Course's view, almost everything we experience through the body, senses, emotions, thoughts, physical states, world events is transient, fluctuating, conditional.
Part of the illusion of time and change.
Right. If holiness merely existed in us, like, say, a mood exists, it could come and go. It would be subject to change, potentially lost.
But because it abides.
It means it's steady, unmoving, absolute. It's the foundation. It's never affected by the temporary activity happening on top of it, so to speak. Our holiness isn't dependent on our behavior or our feelings.
It's the fixed reality defining us, regardless of the changing circumstances of our lives. When we feel broken or separate, that feeling is the illusion. The abiding wholeness is the truth.
And if something abides, it means it's already here, now. We don't need to search for it.
Our job shifts from seeking or striving
to resting in the truth that's already established. We stop chasing spiritual attainment and simply accept the reality that is. There's great comfort in the permanence implied by abides.
Okay, second question relates to how we forget this. A listener asked, how exactly do illusions hide holiness in daily life? Can you give specific examples?
Illusions are essentially the ego's entire thought system. They're masters of disguise because they masquerade as reality.
They feel true.
They feel utterly true. They manifest primarily as guilt, shame, fear, judgments, feelings of specialness, both positive and negative, and self-criticism.
The root illusion being the belief that separation actually happened, that we broke away from our source.
That's the tiny mad idea, the foundational error. It led to immense fear, and the world and the body were projected as defenses against that fear, a place to hide, seemingly.
So illusions aren't just external tricks of perception, like a mirage. They're mainly internal. The stories we constantly tell ourselves about who we are, what we deserve, what others deserve.
That's where they have their power. In daily life, an illusion is active. Anytime you hear that inner voice whispering, you're not good enough, or you really messed that up, or that person is wrong and needs to be punished.
Those talks seem real, but they're based on the false premise that holiness can be damaged or lost.
Precisely. They assume separation is real and that we operate outside our fundamental nature. These are just ingrained habits of perception, reinforced over lifetimes.
But the lesson assures us, illusions can obscure it, but cannot put out its radiance nor dim its light.
The illusion only seems to block the view. It doesn't affect the light source itself. Think of holding a thick cloth over a lamp.
The light is still on, still fully radiant.
But our perception of the light is blocked by the cloth, the illusion of guilt or fear. The cloth is meaningless to the lamp itself. It only matters to the one holding it up.
So the way out is simply to lower the cloth.
Which is forgiveness. We look at the illusion, the fear, the guilt, the judgment with the Holy Spirit, with the light of truth, and we recognize it for what it is.
Yeah.
Unreal, without substance.
But it's hard. We tend to believe the feeling of guilt is proof that we lack holiness. The feeling feels so convincing.
The feeling of guilt is just a symptom. It's the emotional consequence of believing in the reality of sin, which is the illusion.
So when caught in that wave of self-blame, the practice isn't to deny the feeling, but to introduce the counter-thought.
Yes. Eternal holiness abides in me. It's a reminder that the feeling, however intense, originates from a false belief system and has no authority over the abiding truth of who you are.
So the ultimate point of Lesson 299 seems to be a kind of surrender. A surrender of the idea that our holiness is our responsibility to create or maintain.
We're asked to accept it as a gift, already given, a gift that cannot be earned, cannot be improved, and crucially, cannot be lost.
And when we accept that, the pressure comes off, the pressure to be perfectly spiritual.
It dissolves. We become free to be human, to stumble, to learn, and to forgive ourselves and others along the way, knowing that the essence of who we all are remains perfect, untouched, exactly as God created it.
If this central idea, eternal holiness abides in me, still feels distant for you, or maybe even impossible, know that you are not alone in that feeling.
That initial resistance is understandable. It goes against everything the ego has taught us about ourselves and the world.
The invitation here isn't to force belief. It's simpler than that.
It's an invitation to just let the idea rest in your mind. Don't chase after a feeling of holiness. Don't strive to make it true.
Allow the truth, which is already established within you, to gently undo the layers of doubt and fear you've placed over it.
What is real was placed in you by your source. It simply waits for your recognition. It's your eternal state.
Thank you for sharing this time with us today, for joining us in this reflection.
We appreciate you being here, and please feel free to share your thoughts or experiences anytime. ACIM at theworldharmonyproject.org.
Next time, we'll move into Lesson 300, which continues and expands on this theme of holiness and its effect on the world we perceive.
Until then, may we all remember, even fleetingly, that eternal holiness truly does abide in us, and through that recognition, see it shining in everyone we meet.